Afternoon council meeting for Tuesday, November 28th. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. If I get approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Traynor, Councillor Peak, all in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to remove procurement, please, 4.5.
Okay. That will go down into section 9. Anyone else? Councillor Betts?
Just the other one there, 4.4A from MLA Dan Ashton.
Okay. Okay. So those will both go down in the item 9. I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts, all in favor. That carries. And now we go to delegations. We have 2 delegations today. First, I'll ask Lisa Scott from Oasis. Welcome, Lisa. Just push the red button there and it's all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Holmes and council members. My name is Lisa Scott. I'm the Executive Director of Oasis, the Okanagan and Similkameen Invasive Species Society. For anyone who's not familiar with me, I'm a local Summerland resident and I'm a registered professional biologist. Joining me today in the audience is Elaine Desjardins. She is the Field Operations Manager for our organization. I'll be sharing a PowerPoint with you today. So first off, just a little bit about our organization if you're not familiar with it. So our work encompasses the boundaries of the Okanagan and Similkameen Regional District. This is our 27th year in operation, originally as a committee, now a registered society. We are the longest running invasive species society in British Columbia. In addition to the work that we do within the boundaries of the RDOS with invasive plants, we also work in alignment with the Okanagan Basin Water Board, and we are the boots on the ground for the Don't Move a Muscle program. But today I'm here to talk to you about the work that we've been doing in the District of Summerland in partnership with your staff. Our work with the district has been occurring for approximately a decade, but it was in 2020 that a concerted effort was made to focus on the plant that you see in this slide. That's the white flowering mustard, referred to as Hori alyssum. Many residents raised alarm bells with myself in 2020, as they did with Councillor Van Alphen, who brought the issue to council chambers that same year. What is the issue? Well, the issue is that this plant is toxic to horses. And that's when the horses graze the fresh plant in the pasture or when they eat contaminated hay. And we do have a lot of horse owners in our community as well as hay growers. So this was very concerning to many of our residents. So the issue arose late in the summer. So in the fall, we took the opportunity to survey over 100 kilometers of roads within the district and identify key locations for treatment in the following year. Since 2021, the district has hired our organization annually to assist with treatment efforts. So what does that mean? Treatment efforts involve surveying or doing inventories. It means making decisions on treatments, which could be and should be a combination of manual control, chemical control, as well as mowing done by the district. But all of these need to be done in a timely fashion and in coordination. And that was a role that is a role we've been playing. Of course, monitoring is critical too when it comes to treatments on the ground to ensure that our work is being successful. I'd like to point out, though, that we strongly encourage a multi-species approach, and we have been doing so in the district ever since we've started this program. A multi-species landscape approach is critical if efforts are going to be effective for the broader issue of invasive plant management. So treatments have expanded to other species, including baby's breath, diffuse snapweed, puncture vine, and sulfur cinquefoil. This is a map from last year. We're still working on the current year's map, but it's fairly similar. So in the current year, we had 42 inventory records totaling 6.2 hectares of infestations. We conducted 39 chemical treatments and 12 manual treatments. I'd like to point out that treatment isn't the only thing that we do. We also provide training and support to district staff. In this slide, here's your staff very proudly showing the puncture vine. That's one plant they're holding that they pulled out. We assist with identification, treatment options, disposal recommendations. This particular site on Gartrell Road, they removed 50 pounds of puncture vine. We also assist with door-to-door landowner contact and reached out to close to 50 property owners in the district. This was to contact property owners with information on Horiolism and puncture vine to encourage them to take action on their own properties. You may have also seen our articles in the newsletter, and we've provided information to support the district on their social media to raise awareness about invasive plants. And I'll just wrap up showing a couple slides of before and after treatment. So this is at the corner of Simpson Road and South Victoria, before treatment in 2021, after treatment 2 years later. So in a very short time, we're starting to see significant reduction of Horiolism. And here is a same season manual control. So this is along the trailhead to the Centennial Trail. And the white flowering Horiolism is on both sides of the trail before. You do not see it afterwards. These are just visual representations. To be clear, we also collect data. So we quantify this, and our efforts over the last 3 years are showing significant reductions, which we report annually to district staff. So in summation, thank you very much for your time today. I just want to point out that invasive plant management requires consistent annual effort to ensure high efficacy. And following 3 years of treatment, promising results are already evident within our community. Increased coordination and communications between district staff and Oasis have undoubtedly helped to facilitate this success. Thanks again for your attention today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all your hard work in the community. Appreciate it. Council, any questions? Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, there's kind of new invasive species all the time, and a lot of one I've been hearing a whole lot about is that spotted lanternfly, likes the tree of heaven. Are you sort of knocking down the tree of heaven trees as well? And when you go by, like you talked about, there's going to be several different species of invasive weeds. What about that one?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Barkwell. 100% agree. So spotted lanternfly, it's an invasive insect. It's arrived in Pennsylvania not that long ago, and it's impacting grape production, up to 90% of losses to crops. So, and it has made its way across North America and showed up as specimens in California. It has not yet made its way up the coast. We haven't seen it in Washington or BC yet, but of course, a big concern because one of the host plants is tree of heaven, an invasive tree, which is very prevalent in our community. We have done some preliminary mapping of tree of heaven in the district with funding support from CFIA a couple of years ago. The current budget and plan with the district in our contractual obligations doesn't allow to, at this time, expand to other species such as tree of heaven. We'd be happy to undertake that and work with the district in that, because knowing where tree of heaven is and starting to make some difficult decisions on where and how to remove it, I think would be a wise decision.
Well, with the invasive species, I always figure a stitch in time saves 9. Would you be able to make a budget proposal or some kind of plan to council for council's consideration during budget deliberations? I don't know if you have a yearly contract or or is it for 5 years, or when could these adjustments be made to incorporate the tree of heaven?
So we were doing an annual program with the district, and this year we signed a 3-year contract. So we've just completed year 1 of 3. I'd be happy to prepare a proposal for specifically targeting tree of heaven, if that is the wish of mayor and council.
How would we discuss this in budget? How would we? It's presuming Council Barklow wants to pursue that. CEO?
I think, thank you, Mayor Holmes. Maybe if the proposal could be submitted to Joe Mitchell, and then he could bring that forward up in the budget discussions with council, along with staff advice.
Okay. Does that work, Lisa? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Lisa, if I may. I know we talked about it at RDOS with the highways people, and I was very concerned about the lack of mowing along the highway from Summerland to Penticton. And when they did, they turned a lot of the Russian olives into shrapnel, which, you know, with anyone's background, will just encourage it to grow even more vigorously. And along the highway from here to Penticton, it's just overgrown with Russian olive. It is just everywhere. I've got one at home. I pruned it, but I know what's going to happen. Like, I've pruned it before. And I mean, I'm talking like stump level, and they come back like vigorous as all get out. Have you been in communications with the highways contractors and the way they're doing their brushing? Because it's a problem, I think.
Thank you for your question, Director Van Elfen. Yeah, I think the issue, unfortunately, is our roadside maintenance contractor. So AIM does the contract work for Ministry of Transportation. They don't do any chemical application. They have that ability in their contract. But certainly in this region, I'm not aware of any chemical applications they've undertaken. We used to have the contract to do roadside treatment with Ministry of Transportation. We no longer have that contract. And unfortunately, AIM and other contractors use incorrect machinery. So they're using a flail mower to do a job where that should not be undertaken. And yeah, the results are aesthetically unpleasing, and there's certainly, that might be a short-term line of sight issue that's been addressed, but certainly not from an invasive plant perspective. So I have not spoken with them directly since seeing that impact myself on Highway 97. I'd strongly encourage District of Summerland to perhaps voice their concern to the Ministry of Transportation of anything like that you're seeing.
Maybe we could speak to our MLA about that as well. So, anyone else? I just have one. When I weed in my own yard, one thing I notice is that weeds are very cyclical. that some years are really bad for one type of weed and other years you don't even notice them. And this year your puncture vine was kind of bad on my property, I know. So presumably that's not just my property, that's everywhere that they go through these cycles. And so I'm just wondering, when you're controlling that, how do you control for those cycles, and how do you monitor that and take that into account?
Thanks for your question, Mayor Holmes. Unfortunately, Mother Nature is not predictable. So this is why we maintain an annual database. And actually, one of the exciting things we've done in the last 3 years is worked more closely with your GIS department. So the district now has a invasive plant layer within the district. So if a capital works project or some sort of project is being undertaken, you can then plan for those invasive species and treat them accordingly. So really, this is where it comes down to preventative approaches. So dealing with invasive plants ahead of a development or a roadside water main project or whatever the case may be. Taking actions to treat them ahead of time, and then going to sites where we know they occur, and monitoring and treating as needed annually. So it's really about best management practices and taking a holistic approach, which is why I mentioned at the start a landscape approach and looking at all the invasive species, because it might be puncture vine one year, you remove that. But if you don't reseed, replant, and take a best management approach, it's going to be a new weed next year. So yeah, taking a long-term proactive approach.
Thanks. Councillor Betts.
Thank you for your presentation today. Just two little notes. One, I would also support the Tree of Heaven program that would kind of go in that direction. It's incredible the damage they can do. We have them on our property, and you can cut it down and they're already in 26 other places. Second, actually, just on your slide number 8, the sign, the roadside signage. So I drive past that one, and it's very small. So my only recommendation would be, instead of it saying warning, perhaps it could say, the headline could be invasive species, so that would grab the attention of drivers in a different kind of way, because then you're speaking to what the sign is about rather than just warning, because that could be like rocks on the road ahead or anything. So just context, because I drove past that a bunch of times and it was too small and I couldn't read it, and that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thanks for your feedback, Director Betts, Councillor Betts. I think the main point taken, great idea. I think the main purpose there, the Summerland staff had manually controlled along there, but it was late in the season, so there were seed pods still there, and they noted that there were lots of young people walking on their way to school, and so they were picking it up in their shoes. So it was more to grab the attention of the pedestrians as opposed to the drivers. But I think raising awareness for drivers, possibly places where they pull into, like rural mailboxes, is one spot that we see a lot of invasives gather because the vehicles pull in. So thanks for your feedback.
Okay, thank you. Don't see any further questions, so thank you for coming. Your annual report, always appreciated.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Unisys School, Peter and Silky.
Push the button. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Mayor Holmes, council members, giving us another opportunity to come before you and share with you some of the activities that have taken place since the last visit. We have a quick update and then a specific topic that we would like to bring before council. So I'll hand it over to Silka, who's going to talk about the first couple of slides, and then I'll get on to the request that we have this afternoon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your time. So we came in August and presented a little bit about Unisys and what we're doing within the community. And we just wanted to take this opportunity, since we're coming in for another topic, to provide an update. So there are many ways that we're really driving the initiative this year to, create more partnerships locally and create more, to be more seen, more visible, and more impact within the community beyond the obvious of, we're bringing international students here and people are moving here as well to come to Unisys. So there is that, that obvious indirect impact of visitors who stay in the hotels and eat in the restaurants and go to the wineries. We're probably every couple of weeks hosting a family who's coming in to discover Summerland. So some of the specific initiatives, however, this goes that way.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay. So one was in October, we hosted the Business After Business event, and we put on a dinner, a presentation where we presented our academies program that we started this year, and we're really going to be growing quite significantly over the coming years. But this year we're starting with hockey and a snow sports academy, and a scholar athlete program. So for students that really want to grow athletically, but also academically, which is very, very unique in its offering there. We just did a mid-market study, for example, for snow sports, and there actually is no other place in the world where you can come to become a national team member in snow sports and really succeed academically. And it's the same thing we're doing also in hockey. And we're going to be looking at some of their academies, not necessarily all sports related, that we're going to be growing. So we presented a bit of that. It was a great mingling. We have an amazing chef at Unisys. He's a Fairmont chef, former Fairmont chef. So provided dinners and drinks. It was really a beautiful mingling. Then also in the, did it go back one?
Yeah, there you go.
It skipped. Okay. In the light up, there was 3 ways that we got involved in the light up festival. So one was our grade 12s, they're required to create community action service projects in their last year. So one of the ways in which that manifested this year was they wanted to raise awareness during the light up festival with all the visitors about all the amazing companies that we have, businesses that we have within the core of Summerland, and the services as well. So such as the library, the city council, the fire department. So they put on a scavenger hunt where you had to solve riddles in very specific ways that community provides service to the community, that business provides service to the community. And when you were done, they were put into a raffle for prizes. So that was, great participation with that. We also celebrated our internationalness by providing baked goods, holiday goods for sale, and cider. And then also our Unisys band played. And then coming up as well, we're launching an initiative with the Community Foundation of South Okanagan. As most of you probably know or aware, they run a vital signs community health report every 2 years. And we're going to be partnering with them to take that vital signs report and get the student to start leading conversations on the findings of that report, and then start leading youth action initiatives out of that. And one of the ways we're going to launch that is we're going to have a Generations Over Dinner event at Unisys in February, where it'll be a ticket event. We're beautiful sit-down dinner. Our goal is to have 4 generations at each table to have interesting conversations about themselves in the world, to really get that conversation, those connections going, but also start discussing the vital signs reports. On top of that, we are working also to get our international students into volunteering over the weekend. So that's so both benefits. So the businesses or the retirement homes benefit from that, while our international students get to practice their English. They're in an immersive English environment. We're also, another way that we're impacting the retirees is we're running a stocking stuffer. The student council and the parent council are running a stocking stuffer initiative for the community, what's it called? Sorry, just let me check quickly. Country Roads Lodge. So for that retirement center, they're going to create a stocking stuffer initiative. So yeah, thank you. And we look forward to continuing. We would love in March or April, once we have those vital conversations going with that the youth are going to be leading, for the youth leadership to come and present on what they're doing as actions out of the vital signs report. Thank you. Over to you.
Great. Soka, thank you for that update. The next couple of slides pertains to a request that we would like to present to council. It's a way, I think, for visitors, families, students, and visitors from outside of the community when they come visit us to be able to find us. We had looked at other signage that's currently being erected or is available in the district to help visitors find points of interest. So we're proposing that we're requesting that if we can have wayward signs put up to help people find the school. As we increase our engagement, there'll be people coming from within the community and outside the community. One of the comments that was quite prevalent in the BAB was the business after business was many of even the members of the business community didn't know where we were and what it is that we actually do. So it's a great opportunity for us to share with them what we do. And I think these wayward signs would help our visitors find, both international and local visitors find where we are. We modeled them after the bottleneck signage that's currently in place in terms of size and structure. So here we're proposing 6 locations. These would be what the signs would look like. Very similar to other educational institutions. There's a logo, and then there's a name, and then there's an arrow that points to the direction. We're proposing from Highway 97 all the way up to where the school would be 6 locations where the signage would be placed. So I'm just going to walk through. Everybody knows these locations, so I'm not going to go specifically, but it's a way for people to find us. And we've been working with the facilities organization with Brad and his organization in terms of putting this proposal together, in terms of location and size and the design. So you can see that leads up to Victoria, and then at the turn at the juncture there, and then one more right here, just before we turn up into Pierre Drive from Cedar. And that would be, we feel that's would be very effective in getting our visitors to be able to find us. So that's the proposal and the request that we're submitting today for to council. Mayor Holmes.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. Council, any questions? Councillor Barkwell.
Well, it seems like a reasonable request to me. I just wonder what it entails, how many bylaws have to be changed and policies rewritten or something to accommodate it. Do we have any, has staff looked at it and
It is coming up on the agenda right away, straight away. So I think there's a staff report with that as well. I guess the question that comes up is, if we change our policy to allow it, then we'd have to allow every school the same thing. And so you can envision signage for Unisys, for Montessori, for the middle school, for Giants Head. So you'd have all these signs pointing to different schools in different directions. And would you if you envision that kind of scenario, would you see it all become kind of muddled?
Great question, Mayor Holmes. I think as an active participant and a member of the community, we believe we provide a service that that is beneficial to the community, and I believe any organization that would contribute to the growth and the well-being of the community should have a place in the community where people can find it. To your point, does that mean everybody? Certainly not. We'd be open to, thoughts and ideas about how that could be done without creating a matrix of signs. If there's a way that can be done. I don't know how many schools there are in the community that would have a similar request. I don't have a good sense of that.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. Mr. Chu, I really appreciate your identifying that this seems to be a concern for your campus. I'm thinking that in today's world, most people put an address into their phone and do a search up and they are able to get to where they need to go. So I think that precludes the need for a physical sign on a roadway.
Yeah, the GPS is a powerful thing. We do show up on all the mapping. You're correct, Councilman Peak. Our thought process there is we are inviting all segments of the community to come, and some of those are international visitors who would come into this community that may not have access to internet, Wi-Fi, and so forth. We believe this would help them find their way there, number one. Number two is we do, as we continue with these generations over dinner and our intergenerational efforts, we want to be able to allow those members who are looking for Unisys to be able to find it without the aid of modern technology if it's not available to them. Obviously, that's one of the considerations. The other one is also about promotion of what we're trying to do in the community, in the sense that it should be a point of interest, just like any other park or any other points of interest that visitors would look for. I think the signs would add to the awareness of what we're doing as well, not just the directional function, if you will, just similar to other points of interest that would exist in the community today. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else, so we'll be discussing this first up on the agenda there. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. We now have the public comment opportunity or any agenda item. 2 minutes, please. Mr. Bessler.
Hi, Council. I'd like to speak to agenda item 7.2, the 4-day work week. I've reviewed the documents staff will be using for the presentation, and the information is incomplete and misleading. The report says there was an informal survey at Municipal Hall for residents, but I've been in Municipal Hall many times and I never saw a survey, and I was never asked to complete a survey. There's no data in the report on how many people attended Municipal Hall on Mondays before this new policy was implemented. The report says there was a handful of concerns from residents. What's a handful? Where are these residents' comments? Where are the actual numbers from this supposed survey? Because it's not in the report. On the presentation slides, it actually shows less employees left the district in 2017 and 2018 than compared to 2023 with the 4-day work week. This report was prepared by HR manager Marnie Manders, the same Marnie Manders whose actions were described by an independent arbitrator as unreasonable and extremely suspicious. The same Marnie Manders who cost Summerland taxpayers nearly $100,000 in legal fees. So I'd encourage you all to keep that in mind during your discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public? Don't see any. We'll move on to business items. 7.1, Unisys wayfinding signage. And Mr. Delavat.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a staff report following up from the recent delegation from Unisys. We just want to briefly describe staff's perspective on this with regards to how this relates to our sign regulation bylaw. I'm not going to go through the proposal that was already provided by Unisys in terms of the proposed sign locations, but specifically, district staff does have concerns about this request, and to generalize, our concern is primarily due to it being a potential precedent in our community. Right now, our sign regulation bylaw it prohibits in all our zones within our zoning bylaw the third-party signage for a private business. So what this means is that if you were to advertise for your business on another person's property, that wouldn't be allowed. Or alternatively, if you were to advertise a private business within the district's road right of way, that would also not be allowed. And often our bylaw enforcement staff is having to enforce that regulation when there is, for example, real estate signs being propped up in different places of the community. Different types of mobile vending as well. Sometimes we're having to do that, use this sign this regulation within our sign bylaw. We do have an exception to this, and it's for any district-sponsored wayfinding sign programs, and that's specifically written in our sign regulation bylaw. So it's through that exception that Unisys has brought forward their proposal that if council is supportive of their wayfinding signage as an exception, then we could consider it. It's also that exception that has allowed for the Bottleneck Drive Association to be a sanctioned exception to that third-party business signage regulation. With regards to the request itself, even if council was to consider Unisys as an important community amenity, support of community, and definitely they are, and they've got a lot of different programs. Like staff would have concern, there are other agencies and not-for-profits out there that also are very community oriented, and like I provided some examples in this report, like Agar Lake Camp, Montessori School, in-house dance studio. These are all private from the auspice of being privately run, and very much community oriented type schools or businesses. With regards to Bottleneck Drive itself, we recognize that it's a bit type of different intent than Unisys's intent here. Is that Bottleneck Drive was set up as in support of the entire winery and cidery local business community within Summerland for tourism orientation purposes, to find businesses throughout Summerland that are winery and cidery kind of related, and for the most part, it's been pretty successful of doing that wayfinding within our agricultural areas. Staff does want to mention, like, Unisys is a great community asset, and it's great to see the new families that they're bringing into Summerland, and as well the academies that they're bringing forward. But we still have concerns with opening up this opportunity, and perhaps setting a precedent for third-party directional signage. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Van Elsen? No. Okay. So other than the Bottleneck Drive policy, we don't have a wayfinding sign policy per se.
We do have some guidelines for our own amenities. Those are the blue signs. We got that developed through a grant, I think, back in 2018. But those are specific to facilities and public amenities that we are managing primarily.
So there is, maybe this predates any policy, but there are still some wayfinding signs to the KVR Steam Railway as well, lying around. They're kind of hard to see, but they do exist. So maybe that predates anything that we've done. Councillor Trainer.
If they wanted a sign, I can understand their need for signs, just like I can understand all businesses' needs. Like I can see where they're coming from, especially because they do have an international audience. But if they wanted one on the highway, would that come to us, or would that go to the Ministry of Highways?
Through your worship, to Deputy Mayor Trainer, if it was within the highway right away, it would be through the highway, and they actually have a tourism oriented directional sign program for businesses like fruit stands and things that are located along the along the highway that can apply to the province to do that type of signage. The request, though, specifically, I will mention, like the one coming off Rosedale on the highway is within the district's public road right away that's being proposed.
Okay, and my second question is, whenever I've talked about this before, but whenever we've done business walks at the chamber in the James Lake area, all the businesses comment that they wish there was some kind of sign that had a list of all the businesses that welcome people to the James Lake area. That's where I can see Unisys maybe getting together with the businesses in that area and applying together to do a big sign that everybody could have, list their business on there. That's something that I could support because I think that that's needed. And right now there's just a cluster of messy signs there. So that, I don't know if they've thought of that option, but that could be something, I guess.
We've talked about that previously.
Yeah.
I think something we would need to initiate. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments. There is the opportunity for them. They're chamber members. They could advertise at the kiosk at the pullout in Troll Creek. I'm sure they could, get space on there, but I don't agree with the way we're finding signs as it's been presented. Montessori schools is a huge contributor to the district, to Summerland, school district 67, with some collaboration with the district of Summerland. You got the tennis courts, you've got the skate park, you've got Center Stage Theater, all wonderful things. I can't pick one over the other. And I appreciate Councillor Peake's comments. Like, I'm not the most computer literate person, but I got Google and I can find it, so I'm sure anyone else out there can find it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
I noticed the Bottleneck Drive signs around town, and I don't think of, good, it's going to show me how to get there. But it does remind me that there is such a thing as Bottleneck Drive, and that tourists would maybe be interested. So each one of them is more than just a direction sign. It's a sign for the whole program. And the Unisys signs, I don't think school district would be at all interested in having a sign to the school because everybody knows where it is. Montessori school might, but the Unisys is reaching out and really making an effort to be part of the community. And they are tucked away in an odd spot, which makes it much harder to find. So I see them as a unique situation, and there could be another unique situation that comes to council, and we would have to consider each one on its own merits. But I think that the Unisys signs would be useful for their profile and for anybody who might be looking for it.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see that perspective there, Councillor Barkwell, but I think for me, I'm with Councillor Peake. International travelers, tourists typically don't come to town without maps on their phone, and repeat visitors to schools learn the way after the first time. I had to learn where the entrance to Giants Head School was when my children started attending. That was new. And next year I'll have to figure it out to the middle school, but it's still new. So you figure it out, and otherwise the maps are there. I think while well-intentioned, this isn't a tourist destination. And so I don't see the point beyond the map finding.
Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Your Worship. I truly appreciate the cultural advantage of having an international school in our community. But I think that in terms of signage, I think it's unnecessary because I believe people do wayfinding on their phones nowadays. And I appreciate the cultural impact of other things within our community and the fact that they get involved and do things within our downtown core away from where they deliver their regular service. The Unisys program with their students is the same as our leadership program from our high school. So I think that there are other ways that these types of centers are involved, and they have actually demonstrated that they are upping their ante on that. I think that's wonderful, but I don't think signage in this way is something that I want to commit to.
Councillor Van Elsen?
Thank you. Just going on with what Janet, Councillor Peak had mentioned, I appreciate what they're doing up there, but School District 67 also has a very large international program where they bring in a lot of young foreign students. A lot of them are billeted in homes and, it's nothing new. And I do appreciate what they're doing. And if there isn't any more comments, I'll bring the staff recommendation forward.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Betts, any further discussion? I'll just say, I think there is probably a case to be made that for reducing the number of signs that we do have around town, just for aesthetics, if not nothing else. And I think, Peter mentioned that they're a point of interest, which is kind of the purpose of wayfinding signs, but how do you determine what's a point of interest or not? And I think you'd need a policy for that to say what is a point of interest. And if we don't have that, then if you start making exceptions here and there, then you could end up with a real mess of signage out there. So anyway, so I'll support the motion on the table. I'll call the question if there's no other comments. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Barks is opposed, and that motion carries. 7.2, the trial of the 4-day compressed work week. That will be Ms. Manders.
Good afternoon, Council. So I'm here to report out on the 4-day trial compressed work week. We started this program on July 2nd, and we have 3 check-in points during the 18th month trial. The first one's at the 5-month point, the second one's at the 9-month point, and the third one's at the 15-month point, I believe. So starting with the first check-in, our check-in is with our staff, our union and council to see how it's going at this point. So just going back to the beginning and giving a bit of history. There was an informal survey taken at the counter. So our development services and our finance staff at Municipal Hall talked to customers that came in and gained information about a potential Monday closure. We asked questions about what would be their preferences for timing to be open, early, late, what time they use the facility, and so forth. We collected that data, and what it showed was the longer hours were something that people would appreciate. At the same time, attraction and retention of staff was difficult. Difficult's a small word, especially for those hard to recruit positions, because the positions that are hard to recruit because everybody else is trying to recruit them. So you can't find planners or building inspectors or engineering techs, and we're competitively getting them taken away. So that change of staff has a real direct impact on the customer service we can give. So that all dominoes to the ability to meet priorities as you're training new people, getting people up to speed, history is lost, and all those pieces. So we looked at 18-month, 4-day compressed work week. Council endorsed that, and we started it on July 2nd. We're running it to December 28th, 2024. The work week's compressed. So we back the Monday statutory holidays out of the work week calculation, and that ensures that the total hours worked remain 1820 and 2080. In conjunction with that, we actually reduced the lunch hour as well by 15 minutes. So 1820 is a 7-hour or 35-hour a week 7-hour a day or 35-hour work week. And 2080 is a 8-hour day or 40-hour work week, just putting that into context. So at the 5-month trial time, we have met with staff and we have met with the union, and staff comments were very positive. We did a check-in with staff on what the customer comments were and what type of feedback they were getting, because of course the people at the front counter, if somebody likes or doesn't like something, you often hear about it. And at the very beginning, it was when we first introduced it, people were showing up on Mondays and saying, wow, I didn't quite catch that you were closed on Mondays. And then when they realized that we were, and we were open extended hours, we now have a lot of people utilizing those extended hours. And our comments from the customers are quite favorable, way more on the outweighing side than the unfavorable. I'd say it's about a 90-10 split from the information we're collecting from those frontline servers. So with that, here's the results of how it was utilized. So that's just a number from the start, July, August, September, and October, showing how many people have been coming in just during the extended hours. And then breaking that down just a little bit further, the green boxes are showing you who's utilizing the 8 to 8:15 hours and who's utilizing the 4 to 5 o'clock hours. The 4 to 5 o'clock hours, this is walk-in traffic, or sorry, for both of these boxes, this is walk-in traffic only. So we also have a lot of phone calls that come in. We did not track the phone calls. I'm actually going to start doing that on January 1st. But one of the things I can tell you is a lot of people get home from work. They have messages from the municipality, something about utility billing, something about a water leak, something about something going on out in the community, and they get home from work and they phone us. So we know that's resulting personally for our staff. They're able to answer those customers' questions right away versus coming in and having 17 emails or 17 phone messages or whatever that number is the next day. So those people don't have to go to bed worried at night wondering, oh, what's happening with whatever the situation is. So it is getting well utilized, and people are specifically really liking coming in when it's after their work between 4 and 5. So we see a lot of that. How does it play out with the retention side? So I'm just going to draw your focus to the orange part of it. So this is our turnover. This is our number of competitions. So this is the number of people we hired in each year. Our last year here, I only have the data that takes us to November 15th. So you can see starting in 2017, and I started in 2018, so I've just got the results from kind of what I could collect from when I came on board in HR. So we started out in 2017. Turnover was low. We had, 9 permanent recruitments, goes to 24, goes to 31. COVID, we had a year of layoffs, and then we hired people back when the funding was available again, went back up to 31. Then we started creeping up to 33, and up to date right now, we're at 12. The blue ones, just for your own benefit, is the actual number of competitions that we're doing every day, but that includes all of our casual staff that work at other facilities. And the casual turnover is much higher than the permanent recruitment turnover. And just as another way to look at it, I've actually tracked it as a turnover ratio to show you what our percentage is as far as our turnover ratio, which is, of course, the number of people hired divided by the number of people, or the number of people that left divided by the number of staff that we have. So overall, the union does not have any concerns. They're happy if staff is happy, and they have no concerns to bring forward. Our staff is very happy. They're looking at it from the perspective of some of the information that I put in the report, so I won't repeat it. And our customers are, like I said, very few complaints, except for the onset of when it first started, and people were just a little surprised that it wasn't open when they tried to come in. And that about sums it up. So we're just bringing it forward to council with some of those results. We'll, of course, have more data when we come back at the 9-month point.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Marnie. I think it's important to kind of look backwards a little bit. What brought this forward to our discussion to the table was the city of Merritt developing a 4-day work week to try and attract talented employees to their workforce. And that's something that Summerland has implemented, and we're giving it a trial. And I think it's important. We're competing against Kelowna and Penticton, and there's major dollars, but Summerland is an amazing community. But we need to find a way to offer employees a reason to choose us. And in turn, that provides better and better quality customer service for our residents. And I think that that's the most important part of this trial. It's not only staff driven, but it's a retention strategy that ultimately results in the better customer service outcomes for our guests, for our residents. And so I think it's important to see how the data plays out, but looks good so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. If I just may, I should have said that we are one of few communities that have implemented this, and the recruitment results that others are seeing are looking like what our old results were. So people that haven't implemented things like this are still seeing what they were seeing in the previous years, and the recruitment is just as high and the turnover is. So it is unique. It has changed things.
Thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, if I may. I had my doubts at the beginning. I appreciate the innovative part of this, and I think we've seen results, direct results. I'm always proud to be, on a council that takes innovative initiatives, and I think this is a big one. If anybody ever hears complaints, it's generally me. I hear a ton of them, but not on this. Honest to God, I have had a few positive comments, and we all know you rarely hear the positive things, but I've had a few positive comments that it's so nice that they can come home from work, pull in, pay a utility bill, or check on their planning status of their property or whatever they're doing. But I've had I've had 0 people come to me and go, well, this is stupid, so I appreciate the initiative and look forward to the next report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Marnie, I was not a supporter of this. And I have to say that I also have not heard any complaints. I would, as we move into 9 and 15 months, though, I really would like to see what we had talked about in regards to earned day off programs and other means. But as far as our first 5 months go, I have to agree with Councillor Van Elfen. I haven't heard any complaints has hit my phone. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peak.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that we started this. I think it's an advantage to our community. I think there was good reason to do it. And the evidence of retention alone indicates that it is an improvement. When you are a small community in a large valley that has much bigger centers like Kelowna and Penticton, you have to find a way to differentiate yourself, or otherwise you will always be a training ground for the guys that then go on to Kelowna or Penticton or elsewhere. So I think this is a really good opportunity. I think it's showing some good evidence. The only comments I came on the first Monday we were closed, and I never come on a Monday. I thought it was hilarious that I arrived here. But I've only heard comments, really good comments about the time from 4 to 5. People really appreciate being able to walk up those steps, get in the door and do what they need to do. So I'll be interested in seeing what our progress report is in the time moving forward. I'm proud of the fact that we chose to do it, and I'm pleased that the staff and the public seem to be accepting of it.
Thank you. Yep, to receive for information. Yep.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to receive for information the report.
Okay, second by Councillor Van Elfen. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. 7.3, the rec center referendum report. Corporate officer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So before council is the 2023 Recreation Center referendum report that is required to be submitted to the governing body as per the Local Government Act within 30 days of general voting day. A total of 4,625 eligible voters cast their ballot between the 4 voting opportunities. 2,682 votes, or 58% of the total votes cast, were opposed to the question, do you support the corporation of the District of Summerland borrowing up to $50 million with interest over a period not exceeding 30 years in order to finance the construction of a new recreation center to be located at 8820 Jubilee Road by way of loan authorization bylaw number 2023-016, meaning that the district may not proceed with the proposal at this time. And with that, I'm just asking for council to receive the report and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Keeping in mind our rec center next steps is the next agenda item. Councillor Trainer.
I will bring it forward to be received for information.
Okay, second, Councillor Peak. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. So we'll take let's take a 10-minute break. So 2:15, does that work? And then we'll go on to the next item. Okay, thanks. Okay, item 7.5, Recreation Center Project Next Steps. Director of Community Services, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. With the Recreation Center referendum now completed, staff require Council guidance on next steps. Some considerations of the current state include the existing Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center at 47 years of age is at the end of its serviceable life, which was confirmed by the 2018 Facility Condition Assessment Report. At this time, the Recreation Center is a priority project in Council's published 2022-2026 plan. Based on the results of the referendum, 58% of the community does not support borrowing up to $50 million for the construction of a new facility, and 42% do support the borrowing for the construction of a new facility. The results of the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Grant of up to $25 million to construct a net zero carbon building are still unknown, and it is possible that the district will be successful on the application to that program. We also know that the roof requires immediate attention as it's currently compromised and water infiltration has worsened this year. I would like to highlight that staff are concerned about the current state and continued deterioration of the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center roof and request that Council consider at minimum allocating funding required for repairs to the roof. Staff are engaging local roofing companies to assess the roof, provide repair recommendations, and identify high-level cost estimates to fix the critical areas. It is anticipated that repairing the east section of the roof over the pool could be up to $100,000 range, and that is dependent on how much of the roof is repaired. So whether it is just a patching portion or completely repairing and replacing the full section of that roof, which seems to be the most critical area. I've got Mike Federer here with me, and he can answer some questions if Council has any specifically to the technical aspects of the roof repairs, as he's been working with the consultants or the contractors to get some high-level quotes. There are other project factors which are less certain, which include: does the community prefer that maintenance only occur with the possibility that the building be shut down when there is a major component failure? Does the community prefer that the current facility undergo major upgrades and keep the footprint and amenities the same? Is there a dollar amount that the community would be comfortable borrowing toward a new rec center? A few options that staff have come up with that Council could consider in next steps, in addition to the recommendation for roof repairs, but are not limited to: holding on any major decisions until the GICB grant announcements are made, revisit the Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center Condition Assessment Report, engage consultants to reassess the facility, and develop a plan and cost estimates for recommended upgrades to extend the life of the building. Conduct a professional, statistically valid survey to gain further input from the community on recommended next steps post the referendum, or explore an ad hoc committee with the mandate to advise on the Recreation Center project. So with that, staff are available to answer your questions that Council may have, and we're prepared to move forward on your directions for next steps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe through to our CAO. Maybe you could answer this for me. A couple of weeks ago, thereabouts, we had a pretty substantial windstorm. We lost a section of roof at the aquatic center. I see that it's been tarped up now to protect it. Do we have insurance? Like it's a windstorm, do we have insurance that would cover that type of event? I know I do at home on my house. I just curious.
I'd have to double check on our insurance. If it is covered, and I'm not sure if Kendra or Lori would know, but the deductible usually would be so high for a minor repair that it probably wouldn't be worthwhile. And they would be, if there is insurance there, typically they're not going to cover the whole roof with minor damage on one point. So some of that, it's better just to do ourselves minor maintenance until we figure out what the broader roof solution is.
Councillor Trainer.
I kind of like the idea, and I just wanted to hear what the rest of council thinks about establishing a committee with the mandate to advise on the recreation center, non-binding, but just I kind of like to go out to the community again and have to and now that they have a lot more information after going through the whole referendum process, the community might be in a better position to offer their thoughts on future recreation in Summerland. So I think that might be useful going forward. If the roof needs to be done now and it's, kind of life and death thing, as much as it pains me to spend money on this facility, and that's the truth, because I really think we needed a new one, but that's okay. I think it's what we have right now. And so if we need to put money into something that needs to happen to keep the facility open, I think we should look into doing a roof. But I think an ad hoc committee for the short-term, long-term is a good idea to help guide us on where to go next.
Councillor Barkle?
Yeah, the first part about if we can get another year out of a new roof, it's still worth it compared to, what we would be paying for, compared to even the interest on a new facility. I don't know if anybody follows my logic on it, but it's not a great deal of money compared to for the continued operation of a pool compared to the cost of a whole new pool. As far as an ad hoc committee is concerned, we are a committee of the community with quite divergent views on things. So I don't think you need to complicate it by getting some other committee of the community to have their thoughts. We'll have to wait and see what happens after the grant is announced and take it from there. And that's our job.
Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Lori. I know it's challenging to be at this point now, but that's what we were elected as representatives of the people, is that we're here to listen to people's divergent views, to have these discussions, and that's really important. My question about the roof, in its current state, are we in a situation where the repairs would be completed before the winter, or would this be a spring project? And I have a follow-up.
We would try and do it right away, as soon as possible. We just went out and did budgetary quotes, just to give us an idea roughly that we could come to you guys and say, it's going to be between this and this, and really have a good look at what's going on up there as well. And that last little windstorm kind of brought more attention to it as well. We did find that there's a fair bit of condensation that's coming up through that peak area. And so when we go out to do proper requests for quotes, we'll have something spec'd in there regarding that, as well as maybe trying to take care of some of that condensation that collects up in that area. And we also looked at how far down the roof is, like we're losing shingles and nails are popping up. And it's about half to 3/4 of the way down. And so we're looking at different ideas of whether it's a patch job or the full section of roof to do. And it will be done in the winter. Yeah, or it can be done in the winter. It's becoming quite a health and safety concern with our staff in the pool as well. Just with it dripping and pretty much raining on them and further deteriorating the structure. So we would want to try and do it as soon as possible with this project. Follow-up?
Yeah, follow-up. So thank you. For me, it was just kind of deciding whether or not we invest any amount of money in fixing the roof. Kind of was contingent on when do we find out about the GICB grant. But I can understand at this point that if it's urgent, how it might be necessary to do that. But for me, I would prefer until we have an answer from the GICB. For me, it would be that we repair what is most urgently required, and that next steps would come, and possibly a more fulsome evaluation of repair would come after we've heard back from the GICB grant. What do you think?
Sorry, so just on that, so would this work be out of this year's budget? So it'd be you see it being done this year?
Through to yourself, Mr. Mayor. We were looking for funding allocation from this year's budget, so we did check with the Director of Finance on that, and there would require to be a budget amendment for this year should we be able to start the works. But it'll all be dependent in the procurement process and how fast we can get quotes in and how fast we can get somebody actually on the roof. So the work might not take place until January, but we wanted to have this conversation now so we could move forward.
Thank you. We'll go with Councillor Peak and then Councillor Trainer.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Well, we have a facility. We need to look after what we have. I do want to wait till see whether we get any portion of a $25 million grant. We're not likely to hear about that till maybe the end of June, God willing, and the bureaucracy being granting. With regard to the repair of the roof, with the reports we've had in the past, and Mike, your update today, health and safety is important, and I think that we need to protect the asset that we have to decide what we're doing. So I think that we need to do this repair, and a portion of it comes out of this budget. Maybe some comes out of next, but I think we need to do that. As Councillor Barkwell said, I think we are the committee of the public. We have a recreation committee if we need another group to take ideas to or to bounce ideas back. But I think at this point, it's a council decision as to how we move forward. Once we know, to me, once we have some idea of whether we get a portion of a grant to see where we might go in the future.
Councillor Trainer.
I just had a question about the grant. So that $25 million is attached to a $58 million facility plan though, right? So even if we do get that money, we would basically have to go back out and try to figure out how to fund that 37 million. Is that right? Or whatever is the leftover amount?
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor chair, we would need to find a funding source. And if we were to borrow, we would have to go through the process.
So we can't use that 25 million for another project or any other kind of repairs. It's specific to that grander project. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. So yeah, just to reiterate, I would support doing a roof now, especially if it's a health and safety thing. And we have people using the facility right now. I mean, we do need to take care of it. For now, I still stand by having a committee. I'm usually not, I totally get, we don't want to be having committees everywhere, but I think that, again, because we have an engaged public right now, like a lot of people, I think learned a lot more about this process and about the pool and the history of it and the options. And everybody's got that information right now. So I think if we were to use it, we might have something that's helpful that could come to council with some new ideas. And I know that we're the decision makers, but it's also really good to hear people's feedback. And this is such an important subject. So I would stand by having a committee, but I respect council's opinion.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree. We need to, fix what we have. The public spoke. They don't want to borrow $50 million today. So I think we need to look after our infrastructure, what we have. I appreciate that Mr. Federer is here today. I mean, he's the hands-on guy. He's the guy that's fixing everything all the time. And Director Mullen had mentioned something about consultants. If that happens, can you let me know when those days are? Because I'll be absent. If I don't hear from another consultant, I'll be happy. I think there's other ways of looking into this, and I think, you know, like Mr. Feder with his hand, you know, feet on the ground, and the guy that's fixing it, it's no different than a roof. If the boiler goes tomorrow, we make some phone calls, we get a quote. If there's something else that comes up, we phone a construction company in Grayback or Wildstone or whoever it may be. But I don't think we need consultants. I think we've heard enough from consultants on this whole project personally, but just my opinion, but please get the roof fixed. Thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think we have to look, the roof has to be done. And I totally agree with Councillor Van Elfen. One of the statements that is made through the last 10 weeks is shut down when there is a major component failure. I think, Lori, you know, from what we spoke about a few weeks ago, my thoughts on that statement. So I'm not going to repeat my statement, but we can plan for those failures before those failures happen. And I think that I'm not sure what we're doing moving into budget for this, you know, when we go in December, but perhaps what we need to be looking at for our rec center is there would be a closure and see what we are going to do about those, about the boilers, HVAC system, something to do with dehumidification to stop that condensation up at the roof level. There's mechanical things that can be done that I think that we have to look at. And unfortunately, I don't think, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, I don't think that we need consultants to tell us how to move forward when we actually have those subject matter experts working for the District of Summerland. Thanks.
Okay. Certainly the one item in here is like, we know $50 million too much, but the question of how much is the community willing, comfortable borrowing, that's the $1 million question that we don't know. And I've been asked that many times. And I guess the only way we would ever find out is through another referendum. The question I have for council is, would you like me to go back to the minister's office and say to them that we are still interested in the GICB grant? And if there's any update on timelines, I think this is, we haven't been in contact with them, or haven't since the referendum. Presumably they know the results of the referendum, maybe not, you never know with the federal government. But do we just want to let it be? Do we want to say to them, these were the results, but maybe they would have been different if we had the grant? We don't know, but we're still, you know, I think we need to communicate to the minister's office one way or another whether we're still interested or not. Because if we are, we don't want them pulling our file because they've seen the referendum results. Councillor Peak.
Well, as a representative that sits at this table, I'm still interested in the grant. My question is, if we have this application for the grant, the application is maintained at the provincial level, and they give us an answer, a federal level. There's no reason it would be pulled because of a referendum.
Yeah, through the mayor, I don't think they'd necessarily pull it, but I think what I'm hearing the mayor mentioning is, you know, if they're aware of the community response in the referendum, it could weigh heavily against us on that grant unless we clarify there's still an interest potentially if we get the grant to move forward. So that, to me, I don't think they would physically pull it, but it might just weigh really poorly against us, I suppose, in the
If
evaluation.
I may, then I would agree with doing a letter of clarification that we are still interested in the grant.
Thanks. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I have a bit of an issue or problem is that when 58% of our community have said no to this, and then we go back to the federal government, we say, whoa, if you tell us what this net zero grant is going to be available to us, we're still interested. What's that actually telling our citizens? That, yeah, you spoke and you've said no, but hey, you know what? We're going to go and we're going to tell the government we're still interested. So I'm not sure. That doesn't sit well with me. I'm sorry.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, from what I personally was hearing, the respondents, the uncertainty came from a lot of our population was what, are you willing to borrow $50 million plus interest for the pool? And that answer was no. But to get a net zero pool at a cost of $38 million, that answer might be yes. So for that reason, I would support our mayor sending a letter to the minister.
Councillor Parkwell.
I agree with Councillor Betts. It's a different question, and so I think we'd be obliged. I think it's an obligation to, if we got the grant, to put the question to the people in another referendum for a smaller amount. And I'd also point out that the net zero pool will also have lower operating costs than an ordinary pool. Don't remember the differences, but it was in one of the projections in the reports. And it would also make us eligible, I believe, with fairly good certainty for another program that was $10 million interest free, which has quite a value to it. And I think it came with a small grant of about $1 million, and nothing's ever assured, but I think that there was lots of money in that program for this, for a project like a net zero pool. So it's good. We can't give up.
Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that we can assume that just because people didn't support 50 million, that they wouldn't support less than that if we had federal government help. And I think that simply sending a letter saying we're still interested just keeps opportunities open. We can always turn down a grant. We can always say, okay, at least now we have an option. But to just close the door on it, I mean, it's a letter. It's not a big deal. I think it's worth it. $25 million is a lot of money. So I would definitely support. And then, yeah, if we get it, who knows when they'll decide to announce it, then we can decide then what to do.
Okay, well, I'm hearing general support for me sending a letter. Councillor Van Elfen.
I don't have a problem with sending a letter, just inquiring and giving them results. This was with the referendum results, but we're still wanted to know if we're eligible. That I'm okay with, but just to sum up at this table that the people that spoke against the vote to borrow 50 million, there was other reasons, a lot of other reasons. Location was a big reason I heard from people. They don't like the idea of it sticking, in front of our arena. Size, there's all sorts of different reasons. It wasn't just the 50 million. So other people had their own reasons for voting, and it wasn't all specifically on borrowing of the 50 million. It had other aspects of it too, where people weren't happy about. So we'll be hearing about that again.
Yeah, Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. And that's true. There were so many different issues that arose. And I think actually this kind of supports Councillor or Deputy Mayor Trainer's suggestion to have a committee outside of us of community members participating and indicating what they would like to see at this time. But that to me, that still supports sending a letter. There's no harm in that. We can say no. But if the community members come together and indicate, that fixing the established pool at that location, closing for 2 years, doing a significant renovation, if that is the choice that's at the table versus a new building versus closing, the more input that we have, these are 3 of the main options on the table. I'd love to have as much community input as possible.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I kind of disagree with the Councillor Betts is that it doesn't have to be a 2-year renovation. You can do bits at a time. You could shut down in May until September and do your boilers, do your HVAC system. The water's drained out of the pool. You fix the tiles. You do a 4-month closure, which isn't uncommon with these rec facilities. Penticton has done it on a couple occasions. And it doesn't have to be the 2 years, because the 2 years scares people. And that is what we were doing. Oh, if we're going to renovate, you're going to lose your pool for 2 years. That truly isn't how it has to be. And I think that we have to, we take baby steps in what we do with it. And we fix the roof as a beginning, because that's one of the major components. Then we look at the pool equipment next, because as staff has told us and has told people walking through, it's at end of life and major component failures. So we have to look at how do we maintain keeping the existing pool operational. And if you feel, if council feels that they want to send a letter to the federal government, so be it. But I don't think that you can disregard the 58% of the people that came out and voted, and which was I think we have to look at carrying on, maintaining, and if you want to take a segue step on the grant and moving forward, that's a whole different conversation at another time. So, thanks.
Okay, so I don't know if we've got, Councillor Peak, do you have something?
If I may, could I ask Deputy Mayor Trainer? You spoke about having a committee. Could we not use our recreation committee for that sounding board?
Maybe Lori can help me on this one. We could, but they look at all issues in Summerland to do with recreation. I suppose we could task them with that if we decided to, but I think that there are other people in Summerland that may also want to participate in this discussion. So I think because this is such a big project and something that's we're going to be dealing with for the next 10 years or whatever, until we figure out exactly what we're going to do with the building and our long-term plans. I think maybe extending that invitation for that committee out to more people would be worthwhile. But I don't know, Lori, what do you think about just tasking the rec committee with that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Trainer, I think that's their role, to advise on recreation issues. This is certainly a large community recreation issue. So I think absolutely. If you did an ad hoc committee, I think the challenge would be who would be on that committee, and would it be, a lot of what we heard through the engagement process already. So that would be up to council, but I think the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee would be up to the task if there were some specific questions that council wanted input on.
Certainly, they might come back and recommend that we set up an ad hoc committee. So, and you never know. And I think it would be worthwhile just hearing back from the Parks and Rec Committee and what they recommend their next steps to be. That could be useful for us. So.
Yeah, I think that would be maybe a good place to start then, is at our next meeting. We can just ask them if that's something that they'd want to take on, or if it's, what their opinions are on what happened, and then whether they think a committee would be helpful. But yeah, I think it's a good place to start is with them. So yeah, I think I changed my opinion when I was answering myself, but.
Okay, so we have some, Councillor Van Elsen.
Just on that topic, like the Parks and Rec Committee, they're there because they're passionate about Parks and Rec, right? I'd like a more, put it out to the public, let them apply. We look at it at the council table, just like we do with our committees. Yes, no, possibly. I'd like to have a different cross section of the community than just people on a committee because they want to be there because they're extremely passionate about recreation. I think I'd already know what their answer would be. So I'd rather see a cross section of the community if that's the way we're going to go, or we debate it out here at the council table. Thank you.
Well, if let's deal with these motions one at a time here. I think that's probably the best way. So first of all, does somebody want to put on the table of allocating $110,000? Councillor Van Elfen? Yeah, second, Councillor Patton. Any further discussion on the allocation of $110,000 for the roof? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only discussion point with this would be that if the roof repair comes back significantly higher, that we just look at patching the most dramatically failing parts for the time being.
If it comes back higher, it would come back to us anyway, I presume, right? So, yeah. Okay. So I'll call the question on the first one. All in favor? None opposed, that carries. And the second one, well, it's related. We should have done those two together, I guess. Yeah, so that's just amending the bylaw. Someone want to bring that forward? Councillor Peak, Councillor Patton, all in favor? None opposed, that carries. And so this is next steps. So what would we like to do in terms of direction to staff for next steps? Councillor.
I'll bring forward number 3. Would that be a letter of confirm? That's another one. Okay. Okay. I would bring forward that one. Then number 4.
Well, okay, well, we're dealing with number 3
Okay.
now. So number 4 is separate. So this would be like, do we want to set a committee? Do we want to do nothing until we hear about the grant? Do we want to, those are the sort of things. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure if it's in there, but I would like staff to bring forward at time of budget some ideas on what the mechanical upgrades would be for the new pool, or for the existing pool, so that we have an idea of where we move in 2024 on ensuring that we don't have a major catastrophe.
You want to shape that into a motion? Okay. Okay, Lori, does that work as a motion for you in terms of direction?
Is through the mayor to Councillor Patton, is that looking at upgrades for 2024 budget consideration? Or are you looking for something longer term, 5-year plan?
Thanks, Lori. I think that since it was put out there to our community about the imminent failure, I think we need to plan or we're going to fail. So I think we need to know what the cost implications are going to be, and if there's going to be some major cost implications in 2024 for that we need to plan for it. Because there's nobody in the community who wants to see us lose the pool. So I just want to make sure that we're placing ourselves in a position, if something happens, that we have the means to fix it or replace it. Thank you.
Councillor Peak. So sorry, before that, we need a seconder if that's the motion. Okay, Councillor Peak.
Second. I agree that if you don't plan, you plan to fail. So you look towards the discussion on what needs to be done for mechanical upgrades to keep the pool going. that may be in consideration of some budget amounts in 2024, but it may be just the planning, which is a smaller amount towards that work to be done in 2025. I don't know exactly how that, until we know. So this motion probably covers what I'm saying as well.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Betts.
Thank you. Because it would be brought forward potentially during the budget process, would that commit us to the spending of those funds in 2024? Or the reason I ask is because if we hear back and we have a positive response on the GICB grant, I am not interested in committing large funds to mechanical replacements at the pool until we know the answer to that.
Fair point. Councillor Peak.
Don't have David here, but we can.
Ask, he's on Zoom.
Oh.
You have a question.
Okay. Well, then let's ask David, is that what we commit ourselves to, or do we still have the option of changing the budget considerations with this motion in hand?
So through the mayor to Councillor Betts and Peak, I guess the best way to look at the budget is it's really an organic document. It's never really set in stone. Council can make and council normally does make alterations to it throughout the year. So should council move forward with setting recommendations right now, and then we find out 5, 6, 8 months down the road that we're successful in that grant application, there's nothing stopping council then from changing course and pulling out any mechanical type budget inclusions out of the budget.
Thank you.
That's good. I mean, we've just added 110,000 to this year's budget at the end of November. So talk about. Certainly, you know, I think we need to know what we're looking at in terms of costs. We need to do the planning, not only capital costs, but ongoing operational costs and how much and for how long does this extend the life of the building? I mean, there's so many questions that we just need answers to. So, but the budget deliberations would be the place to start, I guess. Okay, no further comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Any other motions? Councillor Trainer.
Now I'll bring forward number 4.
As written.
Yeah.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Betts. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. And Councillor Trainer.
I just have a question for Laurie. Would a committee outside of the rec committee be helpful from a staff's perspective? I know. Okay. No. I'm just wondering if I'm still really thinking about this and whether it's something that we should explore. I take Councillor Van Elfen's point about the rec committee. They may, have a biased opinion. I'm not sure because they are pro-recreation. And I really want to hear from everybody if we were going to do some kind of committee, but I think it would be useful. What do you think?
Through the mayor to council or to Deputy Mayor Trainer, I think it's really up to council. If you're looking to get more feedback from more people and having a committee of people providing you answers to questions, I think it's really having a good terms of reference for what that group would be responsible for. So I think there'd have to be some early work first to determine what it is you want to get out of the committee. creating that terms of reference, having a equitable process for people to sit on that committee, and a vetting process for council of choosing who's on that committee. And if it's helpful to you, then I'm happy to implement that or help implement it.
Councillor Barkle?
I think that Ms. Mullen brings up some really good points. I don't want to have a committee unless we have a specific question for them to look into and some issues that we are struggling with. And I think one of the biggest issues is that, or one of the biggest issues with the committee itself is that people who are going to apply for that committee are going to come with a point of view already. And so, you know, it's maybe just duplication of our work. But if there is a specific issue, question that needs to be, and I would say revisited, because we've gone around and around on all of these issues once already. So let's just wait and see. Might become a moot point if we don't get a grant. Unless you want a committee to decide for us whether we should reinvest in the current pool, and we don't know that without proper reports on the cost to do things.
Councillor Chair.
Okay, well, just one final thought on the committee. Thank you for entertaining me on this. I just want to make sure that, you know, I heard a lot of things during the referendum, and they were really helpful. And I just was so happy to see so many people engaged that I just don't want to lose that. And so I think for now, then, from my point of view, I think just asking the rec committee for their general feedback on what happened, and just their general idea on where they think we may want to go next would be helpful. And then in the new year, when we get more information, if we get the grant, once we have more ideas on what our costing is going to be for improvements, then at that time, maybe we can explore a citizen committee if needed. And so we can hold off on that and just, like I said, get the rec committee feedback for now. And it just kind of start to maybe point us in some kind of direction. So.
I certainly think it'd be worth the Parks and Rec committee to have a discussion on where they see next steps going. And, you know, I'd be interested to hear what they had to say. Councillor Van Elfen.
No, I don't have a problem with that either. Like, I would respect the, you know, Recreation Committee's input. But until we know about a $50 million grant, you know, I think we're looking at maintenance, maintaining, and then if we do not get the grant, then it's going to be next steps. You know, where do we go from here? You know, start, you know, like for 2024 budget implications, we'll start looking at, you know, at least we'll know if, you know, what a cost of HVAC might be or boilers may be. At least we'll have an idea. And if the grant doesn't come forward, then I guess we're going to have to make a decision if we're going to have a pool or fix what we have.
Councillor Patton.
I agree. You know, a letter is just a letter, you know, we're not bound by anything. So, but I do agree that it's okay to get some information from our advisory committee, but the direction that we go is, as Councillor Van Elfen said, is maintain until we find out what is what's on the federal government's agenda for Summerland. And if that 25 million is out of sight, then we have to really come back on next steps and say, okay, what are we doing next with our existing facility? So thank you.
Okay, good discussion, everybody. Let's move on the agenda. There's no bylaws for adoption. Items removed from the consent agenda. 4.4A, the letter from MLA Ashton regarding Bill 45. Who pulled this one? Councillor Betts, I think.
So the main reason I brought this letter from MLA Ashton forward is, one, because he's our local representative and it's important from his perspective. And so I just really wanted to bring it more so up for discussion in terms of the impacts to the Summerland community. I do note that in tonight's meeting that there's a development services update, and there is bylaw enforcement implications for how we're dealing with our unhoused population. And so my discussion would be about Mr. Ashton's letter is that how does this impact Summerland? In reality, I'd like to just have a better idea what that means. And second to that, I do note that the Minister for Housing, is it Ravi Kalan? Is that the right name? Has already expressed commitment to moving forward these amendments, despite this letter of opposition. So I just want to have a discussion if anybody has any further input into the implications of this legislation.
So I know UBCM's having a webinar. I think it's happening right now. Do any of our staff watching it? Do we know? Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly on the radar of every municipality in the province, and so UBCM's has already flagged it as concerns, and it's certainly something that that we would like the government to be working with the municipalities on through UBCM is the obvious channel, and it's whenever they take kind of unilateral action like this that affects local governments as much as this does, then it's obviously a concern. So I'm not sure where it's all going to end up. CO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to Councillor Betts. So UBCM did put forward advocacy that the bill be withdrew, and in another coffee. The latest I heard was that, and I saw this, I think in the Vancouver Sun, that the Premier has kind of been pumping the brakes now and is committed to further consultation with municipalities before the bill proceeds further. So, depending when session ends, a lot of times what that means is that it dies on the floor if it doesn't go all the way through committee and third reading. And so we'll see what that consultation entails, but that was about just for the weekend. So maybe Friday or something like that. That was the latest that I heard, and that UBCM webinar is probably being recorded. So we'll look into that after. Oh, there's none. Okay, that's too bad.
Councillor Peak.
Yeah, I don't like this shift. The burden of proof going to municipalities is not correct. The cost and the other should be on the provincial level. It could create more cost in terms of our bylaws and the work that our enforcement officers have to do. So I do have concerns around it.
Okay, move on to that's good, Councillor Betts. Yeah. 4.5, the procurement report, and Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. My question is the very first one, $450,000 for a 5-year contract to Miss Big for animal control officer services. My question is, what are we getting for $90,000 a year, which equates to a 1% tax increase theoretically for the citizens of Summerland?
Through the chair, thank you for your question. So the first year value of the contract is $78,000, and there's a 4% annual increase each year. The total contract value is actually $425,000, but it doesn't include overtime or after hours service calls. So we added a little contingency onto the contract award value for transparency purposes.
If I may?
Yep.
On their website, they don't do anything after hours anymore. And on their website, they say their office hours are from, please forgive me, 9 till 5. And there's no 24-hour service. There's no after hours service anymore. So it just seems to me that we're, again, doling out cash, but we're not seeing anything for our dollars or the value for our dollars.
Sorry, through the chair. So the after-hours service call structure was changed between the previous contract and the current one. They found that the cost of the after-hours service calls with having to have two people on call and send two people in response for safety purposes to after-hours calls from the public resulted in what would be a large cost to us. So if we were to keep their availability for after-hours service calls for members of the general public, we would expect to be paying quite a bit more for this renewal contract. And now the after-hours service calls they're still available for, but only from emergency personnel. So if the ambulance or RCMP need an animal control officer, they have a different cell phone number, so they can reach the animal control officer on call directly. But this should reduce the number of service calls from maybe 2 or 3 a month to, 1 a month or less is what they were thinking. So it was a cost saving strategy in removing that ability for members of the public to make calls after hours.
Do we have any statistics on the service that she does provide to Summerland? Not Penticton, not RDOS, but just for Summerland, for that amount of money?
Mr. Delvin.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Patton, we do report stats on a monthly basis in my development activities report. It's in the bylaw enforcement section. It's at the very end of the bylaw enforcement section. We do have updated stats. It's going to be off topic on the agenda tonight. If council wants to review those stats as part of that report, I'm happy to take any questions at that point in time.
Might be worthwhile at some point to have a presentation just on animal control, I guess, and exactly what service is being provided. Mr. Dolan.
Yeah, if I may, Mayor, just a follow-up to the concerns with regards to this contract. I did at the staff level, we did have concerns as well with regards to costs going up for this contract. There are not many options out there. We did went to an RFP process. This was our only option basically to move forward with. We are kind of gaining some benefits of economies of scale at the city of Penticton using this service as well. And if it's something that we want to have discussion with council, I think we can have that discussion during the budget process because this will be a line item in that budget.
I know this has been a concern at the RDOS table as well, and some of the rural areas of the RDS have opted out of animal control altogether. It's either you pay for it or you have none at all, and it's not really much in between. So, Councillor Barkwan.
So, I don't remember discussing animal control for a few years now, but I get it's all handled out of Penticton. And if somebody makes a call during the day in Summerland, then somebody from Penticton has to be available to drive up here. And the trouble with that is that there's no timeliness of service. The dog is gone, in my limited experience, and or the horse has bolted the barn, but. So yeah, I'd certainly consider either if we can't drum up enough interest for a local bid, that we drop it altogether. Is it too late now? Are we committed to this contract?
Mr. Dolan?
I think Dana could probably answer that, but we probably do have an out clause in terms of termination with regards to our contract. But I will say that we are, so to answer a couple of your questions there, Councillor Barkwell, we are getting regular patrols as part of our service. So it's not just calls only that we're getting service for. We are getting kind of regular Monday to Friday, some sporadic times of patrols. And for the most part, like our residents are calling this service, and you can see this in the stats. Like people are using it, so that workload doesn't just disappear if you get rid of the contract. It goes somewhere else, and it most likely will fall on our bylaw enforcement officers if we remove this service.
They do patrols. I've seen them. I've been playing tennis in Trail Creek, and and people often have their dogs off leash there. And I remember one guy was walking with his dog off leash, and the animal control person came over, and he very quickly got his dog onto a leash. So I was quite impressed. Counselor Trainer.
Do our bylaw officers have the authority to do anything to do with animals?
Your worship, to Deputy Mayor Trainer, that's a great question. We do have to designate who is going to be the animal control officer under our bylaw. We can designate the bylaw enforcement officer to do that. I would recommend that if we were going to go down that path, that we would need to probably budget for additional training as well. It's a different type of enforcement, like dealing with dogs and the equipment involved with that as well. Yeah, I think that there would be some transition that would be required on our part to consider that approach.
Counselor Peak and then Pat.
I wouldn't mind a little more fulsome discussion. I haven't been here. I do remember a discussion when I was on council 4 years ago, 5 years ago almost now. And we didn't have 2 bylaw officers then. I think there's an opportunity to save ourselves some money. And I know there may be some kennel costs and whatever else, because I really read that report very well 5 years ago. I haven't been involved. I'd just like a little more discovery and some discussion around it as myself.
Counselor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with you, and I agree with Counselor Peak. Brad, I'm just looking at your report. So the month of October, we had 1 barking dog, 1 impound, 3 dogs at large, and they gave food to 3. It says provide community support food for 3 and 14 patrols. So I really do think that we need to have a fulsome discussion on this. It is a ton of money over the course of 5 years. It would put boilers and the HVAC in our pool. Anyways, another question for another time.
Food bank has generous amounts of dog, cat food, all kinds of pet food that's donated. That's another, so when it says it provides food, there are other ways of that happening as well in our community.
Okay. Counselor Betts and then Barkwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you to bringing this forward. I mean, the contract is just so high for the services received. Unfortunately, I mean, as inflation presses everybody's costs up, sometimes businesses and corporations just can't float that cost. So I would be more open to having a more fulsome discussion about this as a budgetary line item.
Councillor Barkwell.
Oh, the indications are that throughout the communities in the valley and other places that it's going to be a really tough budget year. We might have to consider, reducing services in order to maintain a reasonable tax increase this year. So this is certainly something I definitely is going to require consideration. And when I think of the amount, we might be able to reduce the expense and increase the service if it's done locally. You get, particularly with the response time, if one of our bylaw people are trained, or both of them, to handle these things. I mean, they're out on patrol anyway. And yeah, it could be a win-win.
Mr. Van Elfen.
Thank you. I do appreciate the discussion. I think it's an astronomical amount of money. I'd like to have a further discussion during budget. And if the decision is to allow our bylaw to get some training, we could change the name to Paw Patrol.
Okay. I think this conversation is going to the dogs. Councillor Barkwell.
So if we're finished with that doggone subject, in the report in general, it'd be kind of nice if we had a contract value, a budget amount, and where we are in relation to the budget for these items. I don't know how you might format it, but a little bit more information would be interesting, I think, for us and the public on the projects listed. Is that possible?
If I may, it can be kind of difficult with these multi-year contracts, but ultimately we're never awarding anything in a budget year that would exceed the available budget. We would have to come back to you for approval, to council for approval if an award was to exceed the budget.
Well, I was thinking more about all these other construction contracts and stuff, not the, not the multi-year contract, which I think, yeah, so, yeah, that, so my question remains, would you be able to do that for us for the, new sidewalks or a section of road? And how you see these things that are $1 million, 6 months projects?
Through the chair, yep, we can add a column for budget as well. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've exhausted that one. So we move on to public comment period. Mr. Bessler.
Hi, Council. I'll keep it short. I just want to echo Councillor Van Elfen and Councillor Patton's comments. I don't think we need more consultants for the current pool. We have Mike Federer, district employee, extensive knowledge, hands-on experience with that facility. I think we should ask Mike, what do we need this year? What do we need in the next 3 years, next 5 years? And then we can find out the costs for those needs and budget accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could get what do we got here? Resolution close the meeting to the public pursuant to sections 91C, E, G, I, and J, and M of the Community Charter.
Oh, please.
Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts, all in favor?